The resilient Jenkins' youngest daughter, which is baby Minova, is looking very concerningly different in the recent video that they just uploaded, and we have to talk about it. Now, Stephanie uploaded a new video today, and she's holding Minova, and you can see that Minova's eyes are very crossed, and she has never looked like that before. Now, before we jump to conclusions about what we're seeing here, let's just take a look at the side-by-side of baby Minova's eyes a month ago and baby Minova's eyes now. And I'm not trying to come for her baby or nothing. I'm just saying, like, there is clearly a big physical difference, and you can go and look at her video and see it for yourself.
The most disgraceful and gut-wrenching moment in this entire saga is not Stephanie's endless rants, not Drew's cheating scandals, not even the motel chaos we've become used to, but rather the sight of baby Minova, barely 7 months old, cradled in her mother's arms inside a dimly lit bathroom, her once lively and bright eyes now disturbingly crossed, a silent and terrifying signal that something could be gravely wrong. And yet Stephanie, instead of dropping everything to seek urgent medical attention, instead of calling doctors or racing to hospital, calmly lifted her phone to record content, smiling into the camera as though nothing was amiss. Her baby's condition reduced to background scenery in a performance for strangers online. This is not only shocking but deeply disturbing because in that single moment, the hierarchy of priorities was revealed. The need for views and validation eclipsing the most fundamental duty of all, protecting one's child. Case filing. Stephanie Jenkins, known on TikTok as Resilient Jenkins, first came to the public attention through chaotic live streams and raw family-centered content painting a picture of a woman fighting for survival amid betrayal, financial ruin, and the exhausting responsibility of raising 5 children in unstable circumstances. Her audience initially admired her openness, praising her as a mother who, despite setbacks and heartbreak, kept pressing forward. The narrative of resilience, a woman surviving Jews' repeated betrayals, surviving unstable housing, surviving poverty, surviving criticism. But as the months unfolded, cracks in that carefully crafted image became gaping wounds. And the very content meant to inspire resilience instead began to expose dysfunction, neglect, and manipulation on a scale impossible to ignore. The charges against Stephanie are not vague internet accusations. They are consistent patterns of behavior, repeatedly documented in her own posts. The charges include willful neglect of her children's health, manipulation of sympathy to solicit financial support, continuous exposure of her children to harmful and unstable environments, enabling and even excusing Jews' infidelity and emotional abuse, prioritizing TikTok content and personal image over the safety and development of her children. These charges, if this were courtroom, would form an indictment not only of her actions, but of the influencer culture that has nurtured and rewarded such behaviors. At the center of this case is a baby girl, barely half a year old, showing visible signs of what could be a serious medical condition. Instead of swift action, what the world saw was deflection, excuses, and a mother more concerned about her subscribers, her body goals, and her content calendar than about the welfare of the most vulnerable human being in her care. This is the foundation upon which the exhibits of this case will be presented. Exhibit A. The bathroom video is a chilling artifact. At first glance, it seems mundane. Stephanie holding her baby, chatting casually with her audience. But for those who looked closely, a disturbing reality emerged. Baby Minova's eyes, once perfectly aligned and bright in earlier pictures, now noticeably appeared crossed. This was not a subtle shift. This was a stark change, visible even through the shaky glow of a phone camera. Viewers who had followed the baby's journey from birth immediately raised the alarm. Comments flooded in. This baby wasn't cross-eyed last month. What happened? Take her to the doctor. This could be serious. Don't ignore this. It could be neurological.
So in her latest video that Stephanie Jenkins posted, basically everybody is concerned about Momo because her eyes are starting to cross. And we all know that when you have an infant, that's one of the tests that they do. If their eyes start to cross, that may mean that they have something wrong with their brain. And there are actually a lot of people that are nice on her comments because what they're saying, what they're doing is giving her some clarifying information that she may not have asked for. But if you're half a decent mother, you're really going to care if your child is doing things that you may not notice or may look normal to you, but other people point it out, especially if they're certified. So you can kind of see it in this picture here in the Resilient Jenkins screenshot that I always have for context. But she, like, her eyes are looking at her mom, and when they're doing it, like, one crosses over. Again, she should just get that checked out because it could lead to so many things that even if it's not neuro related, it could be just like poor depth perception or something. So definitely take her to the eye doctor, Stephanie Jenkins. I know you watch my videos by your comments and engagements, and sometimes it seems like you are directly addressing what I'm saying, but whatever.
These comments weren't nitpicking. They were cries of concern from ordinary people who could clearly see what Stephanie herself should have already noticed. Yet, instead of pausing, acknowledging, or investigating, Stephanie ignored these alarms. She continued posting, casually dismissing the observations as trolling, as though concerned strangers pointing out visible health issues were no different than haters mocking her for her relationship drama. The significance of these cannot be overstated. When a mother misses or refuses to acknowledge signs of illnesses that others can't spot from a screen thousands of miles away, it forces us to confront the possibility that her attention is not where it should be. The baby's silent distress was relegated to background noise in a digital performance, and that is the very definition of neglect. The reflection is clear. A child suffering is not content, yet in Stephanie's household, suffering appears woven into the script of her TikTok presence.
Now, before we jump to conclusions about what we're seeing here, let's just take a look at the side-by-side of baby Minova's eyes a month ago and baby Minova's eyes now. And I'm not trying to come for her baby or nothing. I'm just saying, like, there is clearly a big physical difference, and you can go and look at her video and see it for yourself. One of the daughters has a bald patch in her head, and then the oldest daughter was just yelled at on live and told F you. Now, y'all can get mad at me for bringing this all up, but something is clearly going on here. The signs are there, and this is very concerning for those kids. I just don't think it's normal for her baby's age for her eyes to be crossing like that.
Exhibit B. Stephanie's attitude towards healthcare has long been a subject of concern, and it is not an isolated quirk, but a repeated theme that stretches back through multiple incidents in her public timeline. She has openly admitted, time and time again, to distrusting hospitals and doctors, presenting herself as a mother who would rather trust her own instincts or herbal remedies than professionals trained to deal with complex medical issues. In live streams and videos, she has proudly proclaimed her resilience on teas, oils, and natural remedies, dismissing modern medicine as if it were a conspiracy against her family rather than a resource for healing. She once casually announced that her toddler was on the spectrum due to delayed speech, despite never seeking a professional evaluation or even a pediatric consult. She has pointed to Drew's steaming behavior as proof that he was autistic, casually diagnosing him on camera without a shred of formal training in child development or psychology. These pronouncements are not harmless slips of the tongue. They are active dismissals of professional care in favor of personal assumptions, and they shape how her children are treated in critical stages of their development. Now consider baby Minova's condition. Instead of racing to a hospital or at least acknowledging the visible issue, Stephanie's silence grows heavier with each passing day. If she has, as her partner suggests, self-diagnosed the child and turned her hubs instead of professional care, then what we are witnessing is not parenting but reckless endangerment. A baby with crossing eyes could be facing conditions ranging from mild strabismus to serious neurological problems, Yet the mother's only recorded stance is deflection and continued content creation. Her audience has had her views directly and repeatedly. I don't trust hospitals. I believe in herbs. That single declaration, combined with her pattern of behavior, tells us everything about why she has not acted. And here lies the danger. Personal belief is a right. But when personal belief puts a baby at risk, it becomes negligence. A mother may choose to treat her own headaches with herbs, but she has no right to deny a helpless infant professional medical evaluation when symptoms are so visible and alarming. Each day she ignores the signs, the risks compound because early treatment can mean the difference between a flexible condition and permanent damage. The reflection sharpens into something unavoidable. This is not about herbs versus pharmaceuticals or tradition versus modernity. This is about responsibility versus negligence, about a parent's duty to put a child's well being before personal pride or fear. And when the stakes are as high as a child's health, ignorance cannot be excused as belief. Exhibit C. Context matters, and baby Minova's condition cannot be separated from the environment in which she is being raised. This is not a stable home with structure, security, and constant adult care. This is a motel room, frequently broadcast online, where chaos and dysfunction are the rule. Stephanie has admitted to relying on her older children barely into double digits, to babysit the infant. She has even berated her eldest daughter publicly for refusing to take on caretaking duties, treating a child's resistance as disobedience rather than as a cry for relief from adult-sized responsibility. Other troubling signs have already surfaced. A middle daughter with a bald patch concealed by styling cheeks, a toddler left to wander without supervision, and Sean, who has been absent from camera due to a court order, leaving the public to wonder what prompted that decision. Against this backdrop, baby Minova's alarming eye condition feels like a natural progression of a cycle of neglect. Patterns of neglect are never confined to one child or one moment. They spread, they accumulate, they manifest in scars, delays, and traumas that ripple across years. A household where children become caregivers, where arguments replace stability, where content creation outweighs parental duties is not a home. It is a stage set for dysfunction. The reflection here is chilling. Children should be free to grow, play, and thrive. In Stephanie's world, they are collateral in a performance, props for sympathy, or subtitles for adult responsibility. And as their burdens grow heavier, the cracks begin to show in bald patches, in wandering toddlers, and now in the fragile eyes of a baby. Exhibit D. As outrage grew over baby Minova's condition, Stephanie had an opportunity to address concerns directly. Instead, she posted a subscription-only video, locking her explanation behind a paywall. And what did she say? She focused not on her children, but on herself. I am going to focus more on my content and get back to my regular posting. I am on body goals, and I am going to get there.
I'm pretty much going to be the last I speak about this because I'm just ready to get back to my regular posting and focusing on what I want my content to be about, not just responding to all this bull crappery. But this is bothering me a lot because people keep saying you have all this support and this community behind you if you just leave Drew, because it's like y'all insist I can't become the better me and the better version of myself, the more independent version of myself, while still being with him and still having our family.
She brushed aside criticism as trash comments, expressing frustration that people kept urging her to leave Drew and become independent. She insisted that she was misunderstood, painting her journey as one of self-improvement and ambition. But nowhere in her monologue was there a commitment to medical care for Minova, to stable housing, or to even prioritize her children's needs. Her ambitions were entirely self-centered, views, goals, body image, personal growth, while the urgent concerns for her baby's health weren't acknowledged. This response confirmed what many already suspected. When backed into a corner, Stephanie does not change course. She doubles down, reframing the narrative to make herself the victim of hate, while dismissing even legitimate criticism as trolling. The reflection is bitter. When accountability is demanded, Stephanie turns inward, focusing on herself rather than on the vulnerable lives in her care. She has learned that TikTok rewards performance, not accountability, and so she performs even in the face of a child's suffering. The fallout is already taking shape, and it resembles sentencing more than speculation, unfolding in real time with every video upload and every viewer comment. Public backlash has intensified far beyond the occasional critical remark.
And hear me out, because I get where you're coming from with the whole, mentally, how's that going to work? Because mentally it has been a lot to overcome the trust issues and just the hurdles that we've had in our relationship. Not even gonna lie, but it's not about that for me right now. It's about becoming the best version of myself, bettering myself, getting my body back on track, how I want it to look, body goals. We're gonna get there. It's about that for me right now. And the way I see it is like Drew can either keep up, catch up, or I have other plans to make. And why would I be fearful? That's the thing. Why does the instinct just go? And I get it. I do understand separation could heal some stuff as well, but that's also not for anybody to decide. Like I said, the way I see it is I'm gonna just keep bettering myself and becoming the version of myself that I see. I see a lot of potential, and it could be with Drew as well, but there's a lot of things that need to change. And I feel like it should speak levels that I'm just willing to post this, knowing that it's not just going to stay on the subscribers. You're all going to share it, and he's going to see this stuff too. And it could strike a conversation where he's like, what are you talking about? Are you trying to leave me again? And all this and that. And I'm not fearful of him knowing that I want better for myself and for our kids. And if we can't create better within the two of us, there can't be the two of us. And I've already expressed that to him before I would ever put it on the internet,
Morphing into a chorus of outrage from people who once sympathized with her story but now voiced disgust and horror at her refusal to seek care for her baby. Once hailed as resilient Jenkins, a name that suggested strength and survival, she is increasingly branded as neglect, careless and exploitative, her reputation unraveling with each new revelation. Financial consequences are not just possible, they are inevitable. Sympathy donations, once steady and often framed as lifelines, dwindle when the audience no longer sees resilience but manipulation. Brands and collaborators who might have once considered her relatability an asset grow wary of accusation when the narrative shifts from survival to neglect, fearing reputational damage by extension. And most devastatingly, the children, none of whom choose to be public figures, are dragged further into instability, their struggles broadcast for content, their pain immortalized in TikTok archives, destined to resurface again and again as digital relics of their childhood trauma. The permanence of the internet means that what is uploaded today will shadow them into adulthood. Social fallout is equally severe. Online commentators dissect every frame of her videos, and entire communities on TikTok and beyond have begun chronicling the dysfunction, ensuring that the criticism is not fleeting but archived, analyzed, and amplified. Former allies have turned into critics, and family vlog culture watchdogs are now using her case as textbook example of how easily influencer parenting can cross the line into exploitation. Legal and protective consequences loom larger with each passing day. Child Protective Services have already been involved with Deshaun, and with visible evidence of potential medical neglect in Minova's case, their intervention feels increasingly likely. The motel could soon be the site of another kind of knock at the door. Not a neighbor, not a friend, but CPS investigators prepared to evaluate whether these children are safe at all, carrying clipboards, case files, and the authority to remove them from harm's way. And once CPS is re-engaged, the fallout will no longer be a matter of speculation on TikTok. It will become a matter of legal record, shaping the fate of 5 children whose lives have been lived too publicly for too long. The judge's analysis. This is not simply the story of one mother's poor decisions. This is the story of influencer culture laid bare, a culture where parenting becomes performance, where dysfunction is normalized, where trauma is packaged and sold as content, and where children become unwilling actors in their parents' pursuit for clout. Why do TikTok moms overshare? Why do they expose their children's most private struggles? The answer lies in the algorithm, which rewards shock, outrage, and emotional engagement. Every tear, every fight, every moment of chaos joys in views, comments, and shares. And the darker the content, the higher the engagement. It is a vicious cycle where personal tragedy becomes public entertainment. But what begins as content ends as harm. Babies like Minova cannot consent to being displayed. Their medical struggles analyzed by strangers online. Children cannot defend themselves against neglect when the neglect itself is framed as resilience or hate resistance. In this ecosystem, accountability disappears, replaced by a constant pressure to perform. This case reveals a sickness not only in one family, but in the platform itself. The fact that so many viewers now feel like jurors in a custody trial speaks to how blurred the lines have become between reality and entertainment. Dysfunction has become normalized, monetized, and incentivized until the cost is counted on children's lives. The verdict. Based on the exhibits, the bathroom video, the resilience on harbor remedies, the sibling caretaking, and the sub-only deflection, the evidence is overwhelming. Stephanie Jenkins has failed in her most basic duties, choosing content over care, pride over accountability, and due over the well-being of her children. But in the court of TikTok, the judge is not a single voice. It is the audience. It is the jury watching from the screens across the world. You have seen the exhibits, you have had the fallout, and now you must decide. Is this a mother simply overwhelmed, or is this a mother guilty of negligence so profound it borders on abuse? Comment your verdict below, because these children cannot speak for themselves, and their future may depend on whether the public, acting as jury, chooses to hold their mother accountable.